By the way, can you move the camera over just a bit that way? That's good. Yeah, that's good. That cuts out that bright light. All right. What we started talking about was being above the world,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that the noble mind does not follow the way of the world, and that the way of the world is best stated or easily stated as being correct, politically correct, as opposed to going after the good thing or telling the truth. And so it's always a good idea to begin to think about, um, how do you see the world? In other words, what is your view? The noble right view is the view of going towards liberation and doing what you need to do to get that. But ordinary view, uh, basically, it does have that loser's mentality or the victim's mentality of, oh, I shouldn't bother the teacher, or that I don't want to waste his time, or he's already said it all to me, and etc. like that. That basically the noble Dhamma needs to be told over and over and over again. It in fact is very much like learning how to play a musical instrument. That you cannot just pick up a music book at the store and put it on the shelf and expect to play music. Even if you take that music book down and read it, that doesn't expect you to play music. You've got to do it hands on and be with it. And so, because of both the repetitive nature that's needed, and that repetitive nature, it needs to be repeated over and over again because it goes against some of the deepest beliefs and the deepest grains and the deepest habits that we have. Habits that we picked up as children and continue to have. And one of that quality is the quality of top and up and down. The
Like
parent is above.
social hierarchy,
Pardon?
like a social hierarchy up and above.
Yes, exactly. The social hierarchy. But and that social hierarchy is a part of the world. And one of the ways of getting out of the world is by getting out of your social hierarchy.
Right.
But we have to keep remembering, oh, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get out of the social hierarchy. We're going to get out of that hierarchy that requires a cause and effect. In other words, you do this, and then you will get rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's an example of what we mean. When someone goes into, let us say, the employment office or to HR or to the actual manager who is interviewing, they talk about the job and the interview and whatnot, and then they will eventually settle on a salary, say $20 an hour, and then they, you know, consummate the deal, and the guy got a job. One of the things that is underlying and not spoken of is that the employer is not going to hire that new employee at $20 an hour unless he's worth more than $20 an hour. In other words, they say you get what you pay for, or you get paid what you're worth, things like that. Oh no, capitalism doesn't work like that. Capitalism is all about somebody else taking part of what you're worth. And eventually, if they're shrewd and you're stupid, they'll get it all. Like any business that goes out of business in the sense of bankruptcy, they do that. They go out of business just at the time of a payroll. so that they don't have to make that payroll. Why make a payroll and then go out of business? Oh, no, you can get 2 more weeks of work out of people before you declare bankruptcy and then not pay them. And that's just one of many points. But the point that we're getting at is about that hierarchy, and our entire society built in capitalism is made that way. But the Buddha Dhamma is much more egalitarian, or let us say democratic, in the sense that more or less everybody is equal. Everybody's got a vote. Everybody takes a breath. And in a good way, everybody speaks about the Dhamma. That's what it's all about, is let's stay on topic. And the topic is freedom. And one of the most important freedoms is freedom from capitalism.
I feel that.
And one of the ways of getting free of capitalism is to stop thinking in capitalistic ways, which we would call the hindrances, based in past and future. That here's the way it normally goes. I feel bad, therefore I'm feeling bad because there must be something that I can do to stop feeling bad. Therefore, let me make a plan of what I've got to do to get out of my bad feelings. And then I'll go out and I'll do that. While I'm doing it, I've got my mind focused on doing it, and I'm not thinking about my bad feelings. But then after that chore is done and I get the reward, guess what? The bad feelings comes back again. So you can imagine this. Imagine that you're, or the story goes that the old farmer, I guess, living in a hovel, and he's sitting in the hovel at night, and he has anxiety. And so he says, what have I got to do? There's something wrong. I feel really, really weird, and I've got to do something. And he says, I know what it is. I got to go fix the fence. Because if I don't fix the fence, then the goats will get out or the wolves will get in. So he goes and he spends a few hours in the night fixing his fence, fixing the rock wall. When he comes back into the hovel, guess what? The anxiety comes back. Why? Probably because he has anxiety often, that he's just in the habit of having anxiety.
And like he's taking this feeling and then falsely imputing something in the world that needs to be fixed for it to go away. This is actually super relevant, because I had a similar thing play out this morning, where I felt like I'd made a little list of things that I should do or whatever, and like I was sort of ping-ponging between them all, and then I just decided to lie down and do some meditation, and then but I didn't time myself. Actually, I want to talk about this in a bit. I sort of just got a bit happy, and then got up, and I still did the things that I wanted to do, but it wasn't, I don't know, it was way less of a deal, and it wasn't like, it was more enjoyable doing them. Funny.
Well, it's more enjoyable to doing whatever you're doing if you're doing it from a state of satisfaction. But if you begin to do something because you're trying to chase away anxiety, then it may not be so enjoyable, and it doesn't chase away the anxiety. That we need to work on getting rid of the anxiety directly. So that's part of also the fact then that this is supramundane, or it's above the world, because the world's way to do things is you do this to get that. You get a job to get paid. And then after you're paid, you'll feel good. All right. So they whatever that is, the capitalists or the ones who are the employers want you to work more because they want to make more profit off of you. And so you've got no vote in that matter at all. Not in a capitalist society. An example is that the board of directors votes about what that company is going to do, and instead of one person, one vote, it has one share, one vote, so that the bank who owns 27 million shares has a much bigger vote than the small investor. In other words, and that the employees generally don't even have stock in their company, and therefore they've got no vote at all. And somehow or another, people just accept that it's like it's okay. It's okay that other people are completely in charge of my job, completely in charge of my life, just like we were little children. Someone else completely controlled your life. When you went to first grade, was that by choice? Very rarely, sometimes. And how about getting up every day and going to school? Is that by choice? Oh, wow, it's the morning. Let me go see that teacher. I've got some questions I want to ask her. No, it's almost always I do it because I'm obligated to do it, but the obligation is merely manufactured. That's a lie. There is no obligation. There is only punishment for not doing what you're told. And so we live a life of doing what we're told to do. And so this is a very, very deeply ingrained habit. And if we don't do what we're told to do, one of the outcomes is anxiety, which is merely me trying to punish myself now because I know I'll get punished later if I don't do what I'm told to do. And there's got to be a more noble way of living one's life than that. And yet, us humans have fallen into this. I mean, we're talking about a worldwide society. And very, very few people feel wealthy. Even those who have a lot of money still don't feel wealthy because they feel obligated to get more money. When are we ever going to become satisfied? So that's what I would expect out of students, is to, let us say, saddle up to the Dhamma, friendly up to the Dhamma, get a big smile on the face, and let's all be friends. But that doesn't happen in big classrooms, big retreat centers full of hundreds and hundreds of students. They can hear this and they can hear it over and over and over again. But when it's directly pointed at them, that's when it begins to seep in. And so that's why one-on-one is so good, because you can ask the right questions and then we can talk about the right topic. Because there's a whole lot of reasons why people will get off the path of the Dhamma, stop doing their meditation, stop changing their life, and go back to the old ordinary ways, because after all, it was comfortable and familiar. In fact, what happens generally is that people will get into Buddhism, get into meditation, get into the Dhamma when they're in crisis mode. And if they practice right and practice correctly, it's going to get them out of crisis mode. And they say, okay, I'm out of crisis now. Wow, that was a relief. Now I'm going to quit the Dhamma and not go up to the top of the hill. Just, getting to the first landing is good enough, because at least I'm not ankle deep in my own crap anymore. And so this is one of the reasons why it's better than to have a few good students who keep calling back, keep coming back to the teacher over and over and over again, because the only option that you have is to stay stuck in your misery by reverting back to the old ways of doing things. This takes practice. One of the stories I carry around about practice, this is about Arthur Rubinstein. He died in the 1990s, so you probably never heard of him, but he was truly world-class musician. I think very little of his work is on YouTube now, simply because it wasn't recorded for YouTube way back when. But one of the things he said in an interview, I think the last one before he died, the interviewer asked him, "Do you still practice the piano?" And his answer was, "If I miss a day of practicing piano, I'll know it. And if I miss 2 days of practice, the housekeeper knows it. And if I miss 3 days of practice, the dog will notice." And that was really, really valuable for me when I heard that, because that's exactly how the Dhamma is. If we stop practicing it for a little while, the benefits will begin to dwindle really quickly. That Sati really is a skill to be developed. I think you've heard that before.
Yeah, once or twice.
All right. Well, it's also the most important skill to develop. If we don't remember to practice, how could we do anything except stay stuck in our crap? You have to remember, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to live the way I've been living. I don't have to think the way that I've been thinking. I can think the thing I want to think and feel the way I want to feel, rather than thinking the thoughts that seem to be foisted upon me because of the past, or the feelings or the mood that I'm in, because that's the mood that I'm familiar with, and it's the one I know. And so, in a way, that discomfort becomes comfortable in its own way. So let's come out of that. Let's come out of that, but we have to remember to come out of it. So Sati is the most important thing, and it's also, um, how to say it? I guess you could say it that it so permeates the teachings of the Buddha that it's virtually found everywhere. An example is of the four bases of power. Sati is one of the four bases of power. Eightfold Noble Path. Sati is one of the items on the Eightfold Noble Path. Anapanasati. The whole name of the practice, Anapana, is to remember to breathe correctly, to remember to breathe well. It's not just mindfulness of breathing, it's being mindful while breathing. And that while breathing is intentional breathing that we have to remember to get enough air, because the mind wants to normally shut down and be in conservation mode. I mean, literally, the reptilian part of the brain is quite lazy. It has only one job to do, and that's to survive, and very little else. And so it works on getting little oxygen. And so the right way to do it is to keep remembering to breathe, to keep coming back over and over and over again. And my job is to continue to remind you of that. Why is that my job? Well, number one, who else can remember? Does your teachers at work or your managers or employees at work, do they remind you to to remember? To remember to breathe, to remember to do well? No, they don't. Nobody will remind you, but you call me and I'll remind you. So it's okay. It's okay to call. It's okay to keep remembering that there's a better life to live. And that it basically, they talk about it in Christian terms of living a life abundantly. Well, the way to live life abundantly is by breathing abundantly. And the only way that we can breathe abundantly is to remember to breathe abundantly with the right view that breathing good is going to be beneficial. And not only that, but the whole point about being in a victim's position of being under someone else's rule. Maybe that's the rule of a religion or the rule of karma or the rule of an employer. In fact, I have four, and that is grab. You've heard me use this before. Big grab, Greb.
No.
Big government, big religion, big education, and above all, big business. These are the masters of the individual until the individual decides he's no longer going to be the slave of these things, that he's going to be the master of his own life. Or perhaps you've heard me say it like this, that you're the emperor, you're the emperor of your own pile of dirt.
Yep, I remember that.
All right, so where are you going to live? Are you going to live buried under your own pile of dirt? Are you going to spend a bit of time climbing out? You're going to spend your time sitting on top of the pile. Your choice. That's the most important thing. I got that, by the way, from Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. And I've been reminded of that recently because of a publication where I read it again. And that is, the choice is yours. You always have a choice.
Right. Not like a victim of circumstance, or I don't have to be.
The choice is yours. All you have to do is to remember that you're not a victim of this circumstance, that most likely this circumstance is a situation you caused in some way. Like expecting a paycheck. A lot of people will say, well, the circumstances were that the company missed their payroll. Or for the union, well, the circumstances is when we had a strike, the company canceled all of our health insurance. Knowing that they're going to do that kind of stuff, we shouldn't be relying upon a paycheck or health insurance or things like that. That we've become a victim of those things. I know a lot of people are going to say, wow, I got to have health insurance. No, you don't. You have a choice of breathing well and being healthy and not needing to go to the doctor. Therefore, you can say, all right, I am healthy and I can do without health insurance. So that's an issue. It depends upon who do you see as your boss. And most people will find Greb as a fourfold mesh of bosses, of government, religion, education, and big business.
Yeah, that really stands true for me.
It stands true for everybody that I know. I don't know of anybody except a few nobles who can say, I'm out of that. That's the world. And so the first thing that you have to see is that world is disgusting. And that not only is the world itself disgusting for humanity, but is also even more disgusting when I catch myself immersed in it. That it's like standing on the banks of a huge sewer, and here I am jumping in. Now that's disgusting. Not the sewage itself. The sewage is not disgusting when I take a distance. The further away from that sewage, the less disgusting it is. But when I'm just about to jump into it, or when I'm in the air just as I'm about to land, now that's disgusting. Or after having jumped in it, that's really disgusting, especially when I recognize I just did that. And so when we recognize that it's disgusting to jump into the sewage of the world, then we stop doing it so much. But that still leaves us in a state of disgust. Because why do we keep jumping into that sewer? Well, I've been in the habit of jumping in that sewer. That's why. So if I can say, but I'm going to make the strong determination that I'm going to stop doing that. That's the trick. That's when Sati comes in. And here I am heading directly for that sewer. And then I remember, wait a minute, that thing's disgusting. Let me turn around and walk the other direction. Now, what is that sewer that we're talking about? The sewer is the sewer of anxiety, mediocrity, the sewer of being a loser, the sewer of being an employee of somebody else who's a boss on a mental state, or that sewer is being an emperor of our own pile of dirt and we're buried under it, under our own pile of dirt. And so when we begin to get disgusted with that world, and we can have the knowledge that I can avoid doing that, that's when really the joy kicks in. That joy, that by the way, all of this stuff that we're talking about here, though the imagery that I'm using looks like a big deal, really, it happens within 3 or 4 seconds. As soon as you recognize that your mind is in the sewer of the past, or in the sewer of the future, or in the sewer of wanting things, or in the sewer of not liking something, or being worried about something, thinking about an email that hasn't been written yet, but you're not even at the computer to write it. Those are the kinds of things that I would call sewage. And when you recognize Sati comes in, and we can say, wait a minute, I don't have to think about any of that kind of stuff. I can think about this present moment. I can think about taking a few deep breaths. I can think about being happy instead. And so that's when right effort is really needed to kick in, is the effort is to take those few deep breaths. That's what we need to do, is to develop, to get enough air so that we can get our mind out of the sewer, out of mediocrity, into an abundant moment.
Pardon me.
Okay.
So I was just pondering what you said, like getting out of that. So what I'm taking you to say is we're actually jumping into but we're also not just swimming in shit. It's more like we get out of the shit, then we jump back into the shit, then we get out of the shit, then we jump back into the shit over and over and over again. And if you're not practicing at all, that's when you're in the shit. Like actually just like, doing the frog style through it or whatever. But if I'm practicing the Noble Dharma, then I'm at least getting out of the shit and realizing, I'm not in it anymore.
Basically watching your step.
Yeah.
Watching where you're going. Making sure that you don't jump into a pile of shit. Another way of talking about it is a cow pie. Don't step into cow pies. As the farmer has to go all the way across the field to do whatever he's doing, he's not thinking about the other side of the field when he gets there and what he's doing. He's watching every step because this pasture is full of cow pies. And he has to watch where he's going so that he's not stepping in pow pies as he crosses the field. He'll eventually get to the other end, but right now the idea is to stay free from stepping in cow pies.
Yeah, that
And
makes
when
sense.
and when you get the hang of it, that's when the joy really sets in. But that joy can set in immediately. All you have to
Mm-hmm.
do is remember to come out of that stuff, take a deep breath, and now you're out of it. And you can say, well, I don't have to think about that anymore. I can think about being here now. I can think about this moment. I can think about being free from suffering. I can think about being free from what I was stuck in. So I can begin
Um,
to think about it in Dhamma terms rather than in the old way of thinking.
I was on one of the subreddits you were on about, I think it was Super Mundane Dharma or Buddhism No Bans. I can't remember which one, but there was like a sutta about this is like release or being the big thing. So like the release, once we release that thing, that's that, the so-called letting go that everyone in Buddhism's always talking about, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
release also our sense of like the dukkha being quenched, and like it feels good to let go of that stuff.
Every time that we remember,
Mm-hmm.
that's the important point. Every time we can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Sati is so important to remember.
Yeah, I found this, to be honest, because like do you know what autogenic training is?
Autogenic training, not really, no.
It's not super important, but it's just like it's sort of like a way of relaxing or whatever, and it works really well for me, and I've been doing that a bit. But I also noticed that like even when I'm in, and I feel really good, and then I'm like, I'll even if I feel that good, I'll still sort of like go off into something that'll take me out of that, and then it's doing the things you tell me about, like remember remembering what I was doing and remembering I don't have to do that, and I can go back to feeling good and gladden the mind and all that.
Okay. So many practices are like that.
Yeah.
Music is like that, sports is like that, many psychology systems and whatnot like that. In fact, you just proved it to yourself that when you think about doing that practice, whatever it is, I don't even care. When you're doing that practice and you begin to feel good, but if you let your mind wander away, in other words, you forget about what you're doing, then you'll go back into the old ordinary ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happens. We forget. And so we go back into the old ways of doing that. So we need to practice it over and over and over again. And the more often we practice, the better at it we get.
Mm-hmm.
And the more often we practice it, that getting better at it uh, kind of builds up a confidence that you can do it. Now, you may not be able to do it all the time, and you may not be able to do it when you need it most, but you can do it a lot. You can do it often. But then there comes a point in time when you say, no, even when I need it most, I'll remember it. That's the goal, in fact, that the Sati, remembering to follow the Dhamma, remembering to feel good, actually, there are crises when you need it the most. And yet, that's when you don't use it because
That's
you're.
what I was just sort of, I wanted to say I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and it's like just like what you say about the sati and stuff. I used to be like what, there's no like, I don't know, secret sauce, and that toolbox thing you sent me about like, if I get the right, and in some ways I feel like the technique and what you do is largely irrelevant, at some points, because it's like what you said, yeah, everyone's got great advice, but can you remember it? Can you use it? And then it's like continuing to use it. So like, you know, I guess I just wanted to say I kind of get what you mean about Sati being like the, you know, that's the secret sauce, remembering.
I wouldn't use it like that. I don't go to McDonald's or wherever you got that. But it does have a secret quality, but the secret is laying right out in public. It's right out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not really secret, but it's the whole point is that people forget. So going back to that quality of becoming disgusted with the mind and the contents of the mind, because really that's where the world is. The world is not out there. The world is not populated by managers and politicians and priests and salesmen and that kind of thing, teachers. It's populated by concepts. It's populated by thoughts of the mind. That's the real place of that sewage. Just because all of the other minds around are in that sewage of grab doesn't mean that this individual mind has to be stuck in that sewage of grab. That's the important thing, is that that sewage is not the actual world, the real world. It is true only because other people have that, but it's both true and not true for you. It's not true when you remember that it's not true. But when you forget that it's not true, then you think it's true, and then you're in it, and then it is true because you're making it true, because you're stuck in the old way of doing it. So here's Sati. That's what we need to develop over and over and over and over again, to remember that my thoughts are not who I am, that my thoughts are actually controlled by an old program or subroutine or habit pattern, or the way that I like to talk about it is the lies you've been told. And anapanasati is the freedom from the lies you've been told. And the freedom is stop thinking the lies. How do we do that? By remembering every time we can think of it to stop thinking that stuff and start thinking about, oh, what a wonderful world this is right here, right now. So we take a deep breath and we feel like a lion. We feel really good. And we do that practice over and over again. It's got breath, it's got joy, it's got the feeling of great success, it's got the feeling of satisfaction. And this is what we need to build up. When we got all of those elements together, then that's what's called first jhana. Freedom from those thoughts is the most important.
Oh, okay. Now this is, sorry, I wanted to come back to this because like so the ordinary mind is obscured with the five hindrances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like thoughts of present, past, and future, thoughts of the world and stuff. So like when we clear out the mind, then gladden the mind, sort of making it better, rest in that we're not obscured by the hindrances. And then like each subsequent time the hindrances arises, however long they affect us, hopefully not at all, clear it out again, refill the mind with joy. That's sort of like the idea. Or I guess I should say that's my idea of what you're trying to teach me to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's put it this way. that mind of sewage that we were talking about, and this concerning the greb, most people are in that mental state more than 99, close to 100% of the time. And then after, let us say, a few months or years of good, solid meditation practice, that might come down to about 90%. So that you spend 90% of your time in the sewer, and about 10% of the time you're free from it. But we continue to develop the Sati, and eventually we tip the scale so that now we spend most of the time in joy. And whenever that stuff comes up, it comes up with, wow, I don't really want to deal with that. But sometimes we get stuck in it. And now we're down to about 30% of the time is spent in the sewer, and about 70% of the time we're free from it. That's the way that it goes. It's going to take a while to be free from it all the time, but we're talking about it over a short period of time, in the sense that whenever you think about it, you can become free of it. It's not like that people would start off 100% of being in suffering all the time, and then the suffering itself gets less. No, what happens is that more and more frequently you remember not to suffer.
Okay. So
All
it's
right,
like
so it
you
has to do
choose to
with
go into
timing.
the pool alone. Yeah.
Pardon?
You go into the poo less, not that there's less poo.
Actually, you can talk about it like that. There's some Chinese that talk about it that the pure land, the free land. Where is that pure free land? It's the land that is super mundane. It's the land above the ordinary land. The pure land is when the mind is free from the world. So pure land is just empty mind. And what is it empty of? It's empty of suffering. It's empty of the past and the future. It's empty of sewage. What is it filled then with? Well, it's filled with thoughts of joy, thoughts of freedom, thoughts of this is really nice, thoughts of, oh, what a wonderful day it is, thoughts of zippity doo dah, thoughts of ah, and sometimes thoughts of silence that cannot be spoken.
So this is something I'm trying to put together how I want to say this properly. I've experimented with this because sometimes I found like I would be doing the Sati thing, and like I thought I was practicing correctly, and I found it hard to actually feel the joy. It felt, I guess, there was something mechanically, I was doing it maybe too mechanically or whatnot. But I have actually experimented with commenting on the good things that are going on in the current moment a little bit, like not like,
Just a little, huh? Not dedication yet, just fiddling with it a little. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that seems, because would that be a better way of, like, I guess, a more wholesome thing to do, I guess, because if it's like you have some joy right there and I'm like, this feels nice, that's like stopping an unwholesome thought from coming in. So that would be like,
the answer to that question that you just asked is duh.
yeah. So like, I guess the question behind the question was like gladdening the mind in that sense. That seems to be one way I can do it, when I come back. But it feels like there's like kind of a implicit thing as well with gladdening the mind. You're glad because you've realized you've done the right thing.
Um, okay, let's use the word realize for a second.
Yep.
You've realized the right thing. That one of the things that you can do with that word is to say that you can see that you're doing the right thing.
Right.
Because realizing generally has to do with being in a concept rather than in an actual experience. So I wanted to mention that. That's an important point, is that you see, this feels good. In fact, you already knew that it was the right thing. And now you're experiencing that it's the right thing. One's right noble view will show that it's a whole lot better to feel really good and really happy than it is to feel full of anxiety with a job to do.
I'm a little fragmented. I had some things I wanted to say, and I feel like I'm sort of flitting between them. No matter, but when you say sitting with a job to do, that's what I remembered about the timing thing. For a while, and I've only recently started again. Like, I wasn't actually doing any sitting practice, or I was only really doing my qigong, and partly I feel like it was because my relationship to meditation had become too much like work. And like,
That is very, very common, and that's the biggest problem is that you've taken meditation, you've taken a very, very good, delicious piece of fruit and put it in the apple barrel with all the other rotten fruits, and now that's rotting too.
yeah, that's sort of how it felt.
In other words, you're making it ordinary. And here's the point: you have to be willing to recognize, oh no, and in fact, the word meditation is problematic. It's problematic because, well, for one thing, it's not even a Buddhist word, it's Christian.
Really?
And the way that Christianity uses it is that it is work. It's a meditation. You have to think about something. All right. But the many ways that it's spoken of in the context of Buddhism has to do with bhavana. Bhavan is the Thai way of saying it. Okay. And what we mean by that is development. Exactly. The development of the skills. And the choice for that development of the skill, since you're developing happiness, you can either develop that skill of happiness with being happy with development of it, or you can develop the skill of happiness as if it was some work to do.
Yeah, that's how it's felt in my mind for the longest time, actually. And and I don't want to do it at all when I think of it like that. But I started doing something different, which was like, because it was also the measuring mind coming in. Like, you want to know, today I made more steps than yesterday, or today I made less steps than the day before. And like timing myself and having
progress.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Progress. Okay. All right. Being satisfied with where you are is progress. Wanting progress, measuring progress, figuring out if you've done any progress, that's not progress. That's suffering. That's the old way of doing it. That's the grab again. That's the way that the grab operates.
Yeah, I mean,
but being satisfied with where you are. So that's what you need to start concentrating on, or focusing on, or paying attention to. That will be your samadhi, or the gathering point is the point of satisfaction. Are you satisfied with your progress? Are you satisfied with this present moment? One of the ways that you would want to ask yourself that would be either during or after several deep breaths. Because before you start doing any deep breathing, you're not going to be in a state of satisfaction. And the only time that you can ask yourself that question, am I satisfied, is when you remember to ask yourself that question, am I satisfied?
Okay. So making, I just want to make sure I got that because that felt quite important. By being like focusing on feeling good and feeling good now, not feeling good later down the track or feeling good before, like feeling good in this present moment. And the best time to do that is after taking some deep breaths.
Mm-hmm. Precisely.
So,
To
okay.
start
So then,
start working with the breath more. Make sure you're getting a lot of air, a lot of oxygen. Making sure that you actually are controlling your breath because you can control it. Now, there is some teachings in Buddhism that you're not supposed to control the breath, and I just don't understand that based upon the suttas, because the suttas talk about the long and the short breath as if you can know them because you can see them, and you can see them because you can create them.
and it says in the well, I think one or both. He trains thus. I remember you made a point of that. He's not. You don't see it. It's training, and training implies like a doing and a doer. Like I'm making the long breath.
Yes, precisely. So breathing becomes really an important quality. And in fact, that's the name of the operation. It's mindfulness while breathing. So if you follow some teachings, and it really, I think, in fact, I've heard recently that it's coming from the Visuddhimagga, which is about 5th century D Buddhism, and that is common in Burma and in Sri Lanka. But in Thailand, the Visuddhimagga does not have the, let us say, the power or the reference that it has in Sri Lanka. Here in Thailand, they generally follow the sutras better. And in that regard, then the breath is to be controlled. And if it is not being controlled, then it's out of control. Is that not true?
Yeah,
And if you're out of control, is that not also a sense of being victimized, even by the breath?
yeah, and it's
Yeah,
also who's controlling it if it's not you. You
right.
suffer. You're like you. I guess your sankharas or your
Well,
habitual
the
ways of
old
breathing.
reptilian, right? The let us say the shutdown mode of the reptilian brain, the survival. So you go into survival breathing. Why survival mode? Because there's some sort of danger. That means we're victimized by the danger and we're responding to it. You're not having
Mhm.
life abundantly. You can see how all of that works together. It's like a feedback loop.
Yeah, I feel like that's something I have missed in the past, or like I've not quite understood. And I feel like this is a little bit more clearer to me now. It's like you focus, the focus is on joy, feeling good, and but the joy of feeling good now, and then the breath is a tool for feeling good, but also sort of like an instrument to see if you're not feeling good, and then you can sort of go back to feeling good because you have that power to take a deep breath and then come back to
Yes.
it and let go of other stuff and just come back to feeling good, which you have already right here.
Yes. And when you take control over your breath, then that control is the way of the lion, that you're controlling the situation, including your own body mind complex right now. And so there's so many benefits to deep breathing. It takes you out of being a victim into being the lion, into being a winner. I can breathe. I can breathe abundantly and have life abundantly. I'm the winner here. I am not the victim of my own sewage. And you know what people do when they're up to their neck or even higher over their head with sewage? They don't breathe well. So starting to deep breathe means that now we're coming out of that state. Oxygenating the brain. There's many, many metaphors that we can use, but it's either you go in that direction into the crap, or you remember to come out of it, and then you can begin to slowly go up, 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 up. But every time you remember it, you come out of it. Every time you remember, you start into joy. Every time you remember it, you start taking some deep breaths and you start enjoying the moment, being here now, experiencing the body, experience how you feel. Because you can control how you feel. If you cannot control how you're breathing, how can you expect to control how you feel? If you cannot control
Okay.
the breathing, how do you think you're able to control what you're thinking? So the very first thing we learn how to do is to control the breath by making it adequate, strongly adequate, robustly adequate, so that we feel vibrantly alive.
Okay. Because yeah, I don't know. I sometimes felt like I guess the joy was missing, or like and I have noticed actually a pattern of something else of like if I'm focusing on the joy, it's like it's not enough what I have now. It's like I'm trying to sort of like
Oh, your
tip it
joy is
over.
not good enough, huh? You're not
Yeah,
satisfied with your joy. Gotcha. Uh-huh. But can't you see that that's a mental state? It's an
yeah,
attitude. Then why
and
can't you let the joy you've got right now be good enough? Oh, I like this. Why do you have to judge everything? The answer is because you're in a habit of judging everything. Always wanting better now, and this and that is not good enough.
the future
Well,
and future thinking of like if I do this, it'll be a bit better.
mm-hmm. That this is really pleasant. This is really great. This is wonderful right now. Who in Perth do you know thinks that way? Who in Perth does not think about it in the sense of, oh, this is not good enough. We should improve. We should get better.
Everyone.
Everybody, huh?
Pretty
Well,
much.
right. We need to spend some time with people who know that this present moment is just fine. It's wonderful. It's as good as we can make it. And we're satisfied with ever how good it is that we made it right now. This is good. This is good. This is fine. Because if we recognize we can make it a little bit good right now, then that's a skill developing. It's like, why does a kid learn to play the piano? Why does he practice? Because he can see his improvement. He recognizes, oh, if I keep doing this, I'll be able to play some better music. And you can, but you got to be able to play a bit of music right now rather than just hoping for better music later.
Yep. That meant yeah. Okay.
So hum a little tune. Be happy. It's such an
So
easy teaching, but it's so hard to teach it.
yeah, I had a side question. What do you when you say right attitude? What's the Pali word for attitude?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Right.
You want
Okay.
me to do that?
Hmm?
Do you want me to do that?
That'd be
I can.
cool.
Okay, well, I'll look it up and send it to you by Skype. But this is
Thanks.
how I'd do it. I'd go on to Sutta Central. I would find Sutta number 117, Then I would go to that section where right attitude is discussed in the English, and then I would look in the Pali. And there's a
Right.
pull down box at the top right hand corner where you can set it. It'll bring a little window up, and and you can do side by side or line by line if you do Subharo's Sutta. So that's the way to actually do it.
Okay, dokie.
Very easy to look up. It'll only take you 1 minute or so to do it.
Yeah, I'll do that then. Just because I haven't heard attitude come in as the it's just not one I've heard as people saying it as attitude before. I can't remember how I've heard it before. It's striking.
Generally, it's wrongly translated as intention, right intention,
Yeah.
or right thought. All right,
Right.
but neither one of those are strong enough. All right. In fact, the word intention, the way that I use it is that that's wanting something. You have the intention to get something. So intention is always future oriented, but the attitude is what you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so the Buddha was known to be really robust, to be a lion mentally. Who do you know of throughout all of history, Buddhism or otherwise, do we know of anyone who had a better attitude than the Buddha himself? So we can start with that point. Begin to have the attitude of a Buddha. Practice it. It's a skill to be developed.
And the right attitude is this moment's
Yep.
fine.
And I'm in charge. I'm the one who manufactures this moment. I'm the God here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the lion that roars. But it's not an I am in the sense of selfishness. It's just, this is just the attitude. The reason I'm using I am the lion is because that's how English works. A better way of saying it, and this is actually the right way of saying it, is ah. Instead of saying I roar, it's just a roar. And so this is one's right attitude. Now, the opposite or the wrong attitude is the attitude of I am king or I am boss or I am in charge of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not what we're getting at. This lion is in charge of his own breath. This lion is in charge of his own feelings. This lion is in charge of his own thoughts, so he can think what he wants to think. Another quality of the lion is that he is strong, and strong enough in this sense, strong enough to handle the truth. Have you ever heard about that movie, A Few Good Men, where Colonel Jessup is on the witness stand and says, the
Yeah.
truth, you can't handle the truth. Well, guess what? He's right. Most people just can't do it. That's why the Western and human society lives in a pack of lies, is because we can't handle the truth. We're not strong enough. We're victims to the truth, especially when the truth is actually confused as what we're told to do. We think that what we're told to do is the truth, where in fact, oh no, that's just a threat. And the truth is that you can feel as good as you want to feel. You can feel like a lion. You can be a winner in your own mind. And now the ordinary right view is the right view of a victim. Oh, let's all get along. Everybody's got their viewpoint, political correctness. And society is built upon political correctness to go along, get along, which means we do what we're told to do. So you have the bosses, and then you have the everybody else, and you have this one up, one down relationship where those who have wrong view are in charge of those who have ordinary right view. And noble right view is with all of that. I'll go walk. You guys work it out yourselves. I'm out of here. And so every
Okay.
time you see that conversation working out in your own mind, you can say, wait a minute, I'm out of here. I don't need that conversation. Now, surprisingly enough, that quality of between the right view and the wrong view can also be seen in the sense of the wrong view is all the rules of all the things that you've been told to do. So the ordinary right view is let's all get along. Now, here's how that works within one's own mind. All of those rules that you've learned from your parents, from the teachers, from all of that, what Eric Berne in psychology will call the parent ego state, and what Sigmund Freud calls the superego. And the other side of the conversation, the compliant one, the one with ordinary right view, is the child ego state or the reptilian brain, that which is in survival mode that will go along to get along. But the frontal cortex is the adult ego state that Berne talks about. Let's wake him up so that he can dispense with that dialogue between the parent, this is what you should do, and the child, I don't wanna, but you gotta do it. All right, but I don't want to do it. Do it anyway. Okay, I'll do it and I'll feel bad. Now, this is the conversation that everybody has on almost every issue.
Yeah. That's pretty much what happens in my own sort of internal talk space to some degree.
All right, well, whenever you see that stuff, you can, with Sati, wake up to it and say, wait a minute, I see this dialogue. I see this crap going on in the mind. I see this sewage dialogue happening between the parent and the child inside me. And I can come out of it. I can grow up. I can be a fully grown adult, become superhuman. And you don't do it eventually getting there. You do it every time you think about it. I'm out of it right now. I do not have to think the thoughts that I was thinking. I'm going to start putting my attention right now on taking a deep breath instead. And by taking those deep breaths, we wake up that frontal cortex. You're now in control. Before, who was in control was the dialogue between the superego and the child, or the id in Freudian's language.
So, with this satisfaction thing as well, though, like you're feeling good and you're satisfied with how much you're feeling good, not wanting for more. Is that the first jhana then? Like, or is that
Yes,
like
it is. With
okay.
success, satisfaction, and freedom from the hindrances, and having a mind that's well oxygenated and fit for work, to enjoy that satisfaction and to maintain it, that's first jhana. And that maintaining it then becomes your job, to become on guard, to not allow that dialogue between the parent and the child to start up again.
Okie dokie.
It's so easy. That's the whole state to be in. Get yourself into a state of satisfaction and then maintain it. And if you do that 5, 10, 15 times a day, you'll get pretty good at it.
Okay. So that makes even more sense than the way you said it before. Just get happy and stay happy.
I wish I could say it that easily, but now that you said it, it means something to you. If I'd have said those same words, it wouldn't have meant a thing. But now that you're
Yeah.
saying it, it means everything, and I congratulate you for that. Just
Okay.
get
Yeah.
happy and stay happy. That's all there is to it. That's why the Buddha said it that way. That's exactly the way the Buddha said it. Dukkha, dukkha, nirodha. That's it. Dukkha, sukha. Get yourself into a state of happiness and stay there. Don't worry, be happy. Bob Marley or Bobby McFerrin. Don't worry, be happy. That's it. That's exactly it. Get yourself
That
happy
makes
every time you remember it and stay happy as long as you can remember and to do it.
because I never got the when you said the "don't worry, be happy" part. I didn't really get it. I'm like, but I guess it makes sense because it's like once you choose to be happy, you don't worry because that makes you unhappy. So the "don't worry, be happy" is don't worry about things that doesn't make you happy. You just be happy.
Just be happy. Don't worry about the things that make you unhappy. Don't worry about anything because worry itself is an unhappy state. So you could actually just sum up all of the hindrances into the word worry. And whenever you see yourself worried, what does that mean? That's that worried dialogue between the superego and the id. That's the cycle. That's the worry.
And then
Looking for
I can
something
remember.
bad to happen.
Mm-hmm. And you
In
can just
fact,
leave it.
So when people get worried about something, what they're doing is they're expecting disaster and they're trying to figure out something to get to postpone or eliminate that disaster. Is that not true? That's what worry is. Well, isn't
Mm-hmm.
the really correct way then to finish the worry is just to stop worrying? Because you can always find something to worry about. I mean, the world's a really terrible place, and you can find always something to worry about. You want a list? I'll give you a list. I'll give you a list. You can't handle the list. But it would be much better to deal with the truth. And the truth is, you don't have to worry.
Fits together quite well.
Pardon?
That fits together quite well in my head. You know, puzzle box. The way you
Okay.
put it together this time makes sense quite a lot.
Well, I know that. I know that it does. That the first time the students say, "Yeah, yeah, I got it, I got it." No, they don't. It's a simple lesson. The lesson itself is simple, but teaching that lesson is difficult, or let us say repetitive. It really is like it's like paint. It's like paint. You know that if you paint something black, then you want to paint it white. It's not going to take just one coat. And if you're trying to paint white over a black, you even three coats are not enough. You'll still be able to detect that black in there. It takes coat after coat after coat. So that's a way of thinking about it also. Another way of thinking about it is, do you have a kitchen?
Mm-hmm.
How often do you take out the trash?
Oh, it depends. Probably like twice a week.
Twice a week. Okay. All right. How often does your mind get full of crap?
Every
How
day.
often? So you need to take the trash out of the mind even more often than out of the kitchen, huh?
Yeah.
That's another way of saying that's what the Dhamma is all about, is just don't forget to take out the trash. What trash are you going to take out? Well, the trash I'm collecting right now.
Okay.
So these are all the analogies, all right, that whatever we're thinking about that's not about the present moment is based upon old stuff. It's based upon all the laws that we were told, all the rules we were told, and all of our then responses to all the rules been told. And that dialogue is in samsara. And the right way to live is to recognize that, to see that dialogue and put it to a rest and come and enjoy the present moment. Take a few deep breaths and say, wow, this is so nice. This is so nice. And the place to start practicing that is when you're in seclusion, because it's really hard to do it when you're out in public. All kinds of distractions that will take you back into the old way of thinking. And so getting to yourself and getting alone and just spending time, for instance, taking a walk in nature, and spend how much time can you just stay in visual awareness, just enjoying the nature, taking a few deep breaths as you walk, and stay in a state of pleasantness. And so when you start thinking about getting back home, when you start thinking about not walking, that's the time to remember, oh, I'm out here on the walk and I'm going to think about this walk and I'm going to be here now with this walk.
Get happy, stay happy while walking.
Yeah, while walking, old stuff will come up. An example of two people out walking, they very rarely say, oh, look at that, and wow, that's interesting, and all the neighbors done something over there. No, they start talking about stuff that's happened at work or a problem between the two of them or whatever like that. They go off into any place other than where they are right here, right now.
Ah, okay. So it's also, this is another way of another sort of,
Well, you're a
okay,
crowd inside. You really are a crowd. And that crowd has conversations and dialogues. Mostly the crowd is three. Two of them are just yakking all the time, and the third one is not doing too much because he's asleep. But with that deep breath, when we remember, then we can wake up that part of the brain that can see what's happening right now.
So another way of this, like, say, getting happy, staying happy, like you're applying that to coming into the senses and out of the reptilian mind, as you say. So like hearing the sound of nature, but I suppose in a sense as well, not just like, oh, that's a bird sound, and then you don't pay any more attention to it. It's like, oh, that's a nice bird sound, and then appreciating the sort of the sound of that bird as it is in that moment, and not just like, oh, bird sounds are nice. It's like that bird sound is nice.
Right now, exactly. And we've got a lot of birds here.
Yeah, exactly. So do we, actually. Our garden gets full of them. And I do appreciate that.
Great. Excellent. So, in that regard, when you see meditation as a job or a chore to do, that's the old way of thinking about it, because you're actually using a concept called meditation that has a certain, let us say, attributes, like going off and sitting in a certain posture, right? All of that kind of stuff, rather than, oh, really what we need to do is to remember to be here now, remember to be happy.
Right.
So and like, that we only go off and sit down in seclusion because we want to make sure that we're training to remember.
Okie dokie. And I'm more, yeah, that makes a lot more sense, because I had wondered, or I had sort of felt like I needed to change my view of meditation, because it's like, you know, I think in the past year, the amount of sitting meditation I've done has been like you know, barely any.
Well, that's because meditation was a job, a chore.
Yeah,
And in
definitely.
that, and a lot of people practice meditation that way and get very little out of it, but they put a lot of effort into it, but not right effort, not noble effort. The noble effort is to take that deep breath and say, oh, I can change my attitude. I can be a winner right now. Though my habit is to be a loser, I'm going to be a winner right now.
Interesting to notice, like, even in the way we go about meditation, it's still tinged with the, well, I suppose because you have wrong view, you go into meditation with the wrong view and you practice in wrong view. So that makes sense. But still, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And this actually kind of pings back to something I said. I think our last chat, we had a big discussion about like being future orientated and wanting transcendence and stuff, which is dukkha for like wanting what I don't have. And you know, that's sort of like how meditation had been for a while, which was like I'm gonna sit
That
down
was how it was
now.
sold to you. That was the lie you were told.
Yeah.
That's the
Okey
kind of
doke.
stuff that people read a book about meditation, but they come out with those old beliefs. If the book says, if you do that, you'll get this. And immediately we give ourselves a job to do rather than, oh, wow, that's great. Let me do that right now. They don't do it right now. They think that, oh, I've got to go sit down and perform a meditation that lasts for a while. And finally, after 300 hours or so, the magic karma machine will come in and tap me on the shoulder or something. And then I'll feel bliss.
But it's just making the bliss now.
Exactly. Make it. They say
Getting
fake it till you make
happy.
it. No, make it until you make it. Don't fake it. Just do it. You know already how to feel good. When you were a really, really little kid, you knew how to feel good. You stopped feeling good because you decided that you were going to do what you were told to do, whether you liked it or not, and you didn't like it. But now you can do what you want to do. You're an adult. You can feel good. You can feel happy as you've ever felt before. Ever how happy you've ever felt before, you can feel that happy right now. And every time you think about it. So one way to do that is by thinking about when have you had really big wins? When have you felt really on top of the world? What were some peak experiences in your life? Think about those and begin to feel the way you felt then, right now.
So like using the okay. I think I get it. So I like the because it's also wholesome thoughts because I'm thinking about how I felt then. That's going to make me feel a little bit like I felt then, and I'm also sort of changing how I'm feeling now
Because
and
you're working
getting.
with your feelings. Right. Start working with those feelings. Get yourself into a really good state, a state of success, a state of satisfaction. So go off and do this. Practice. This is what we mean by practice. Practice feeling good. Practice deep breathing. Practice remembering over and over and over again. Do that for a few days and call me back.
for a few hundred days.
No, a few days,
Okay.
a few hundred
Yep.
times.
Yep. That make okay. So basically, summing up: get happy, stay happy, appreciate what's good in the current moment, and realize that I control my feelings, so make those feelings good ones.
Yes, you can.
Okie dokie.
All right. Is there anything else we need to talk about today?
No,
All
not
right.
today.
Okay, well, call me back and we'll do it then. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again too, Dhammarato. Always a joy.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.